moving quickly. Another handoff to Rankin. Rankin finds a hole. He's at the 30. Makes it to the 20. He's got one man to beat. Rankin walks into the end zone. Into the backfield. Braden Wright looks over top. He's going to try to find a man. He's got Alec Tatum. Tatum bobbles it, but he's in the end zone. What a connection between Braden Wright and Alec Tatum. Handoff to Rankin. Rankin right up the middle, and he's in the end zone for a Bearcat touchdown.
You that the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekend Sports Kickoff here on X106, also streaming live on the KNWT Channel 8 Facebook page. Jacob Blair, Andrew Botwinick, Sam Steinmeier, and Austin McNorton. Sam's microphone already in jeopardy before the show even starts. We've got Sam on watch. Nolan is not here. And Andrew, before we get to Bearcat basketball, they took care of business last night. Something happened last Sunday. Something big.
That it did.
We've had a.
We're still on this.
Oh yeah. We gotta start every single show.
You know, Sam. When the Cowboys win a Super Bowl, you won't be here. So
you don't know that.
He'll be here next year.
Of course.
Could be next year. Could be the year after.
You'll still want to talk about it 5 days later.
Probably.
So we're just mentioning it real
5
quick.
years later.
Yes. So Andrew, the Chiefs won a Super Bowl. Does it still feel? It's just that it still feels really good knowing that. I'll put it this way: it's a weird feeling that football season's over and you don't have that like feeling of loss.
It's weird that it hasn't even been a week yet, but it feels like it was a month ago that the Super Bowl actually happened. And it's not often I get to say that it just feels like it's so much longer than it has been. And because the parade's already happened, Patrick Mahomes already went to Disneyland. He already did, like, everything has been crossed off the checklist within a week. It's just weird to think that. And then now I see everybody for the Chiefs that I'm seeing is they're training again.
Yep.
They didn't take much longer.
Patrick Mahomes was back in the weight room this morning.
I think we said, like, on Monday on your show, they celebrated, they got what they wanted. Now they're back into the grind. They're back. They're ready to play. They're ready to learn more.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about that here at the back end of the first hour of the show. But first, let's go back to December the 7th. Northwest takes a trip to Warrensburg, and for the first time in a long time, it was 46 games, the Bearcats dropped one. They lost 72-60 to Central Missouri. Well, the rematch was one night ago, and Central Missouri, you got one. You didn't get the second, as that Northwest came in, and they'll say they didn't have it circled. They'll say there wasn't extra motivation, but I'm sorry. Watching that one game ago, oh my goodness. At one point, it was 69-29 with 8 minutes to play in the second half. The Northwest this year, there's been games where they've buried opponents, but they buried Central Missouri a little bit deeper than everyone else so far.
Well, and they're the number one defense in the MIAA, just about 60 points per game they're giving up. But you would have thought this was Austin Meyer's defense out there. They're just so stingy in the second half to start. They didn't give up anything. I don't even think UCM had a bucket. They had a pair of free throws within the first half of the second half, but they didn't score anything other than that. It was just kind of slow movement on offense. They tried to get something going. If it didn't work in the first 10 seconds, 9 times out of 10, they took a shot clock violation. And the crowd here in Bearcat Arena ate that up real quick, and it was just it fed onto it more and more and more, and the crowd kept feeding off the players and vice versa, the players off of the crowd. It just happened more and more and more, and this defensive pressure that we kept seeing from this Bearcats team was just so immense.
It wasn't until the 11-17 mark of the second half that Central Missouri, it was 51-25 at halftime, I believe, or was it 40? It was 49.
46-25.
46-25, and then it was 60-25. And finally at the 11-17 mark, 2 free throws for Central Missouri. And then at the 9:38 mark, they finally got their first field goal. So it was 62-29. Northwest was not done. It was then at the 7:35 mark, 69-29. And once they went up that 40, then they kind of took their foot off the gas, kind of coasted to the end, and it ended up it's just weird to say. It ended up 81-47.
What was so intriguing for me from last night was it made you really think back to that December 7th game where because to be honest, UCM did not belong on the same court as Northwest. It was very evident that Northwest was by far the most superior team, and it makes you really truly wonder what happened in that first matchup. How did this team beat Moso too? I mean, it's just like from what we saw last night, that team is the record that 9-12. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, they're 9-12. You can see that. I don't know what happened that first meeting, but last night I think it shows that when Northwest truly focuses on an opponent, has motivation to beat an opponent, they're going to beat an opponent, which makes them extremely dangerous to repeat as national champions for me. Have that motivation to say, we want to win the national championship, we're going to.
I can tell you the difference between the December 7th and the February 6th matchup. One of them was at Warrensburg.
Right.
They're a different team when they play at home. Coming into this game last night, they were 0-6 on the road. They had not played very well against opponents. In fact, after a win in the MIAA, once MIAA play started, after getting a win, UCM was only 1-3 in the next game after, and that one win coming the game before against the team they played right after that, after Newman. So they haven't played the best of basketball on the road. They're playing a lot better at home, and Jacob, I'm sure, will be able to tell us all why, because that seems like that core is the thing that you always keep bringing up, and I haven't been able to see it firsthand like you have, but I think that has something to do with it as well. They're defending their home court a little bit better than they are on the road.
They're 8-5 at home this year, 9 total wins. So UCM's played well at home, have played pretty poorly on the road, but again, Northwest, you could tell, and we've kind of been asking players after the game, well, there's this game 2 weeks away, and they're trained. They don't say anything, but you can still kind of tell they wanted to get this one back. They wanted to prove a point. It wasn't so even a revenge game. They just wanted to prove a point that it was a bad game. Everyone has a bad game, and that's what happened against UCM. Did not shoot the ball well, did not play well. That happens every once in a while, even to number one teams in the country. You saw Bellarmine go through a week where they played 2 games. They had 2 really poor games and lost 2 games and fell down the rankings to give Northwest the number 1 ranking back. But, again, just they wanted to prove a point, and it was very evident very early that UCM, you got to play the game, but within the first 3 minutes, we may as well send everyone to the locker rooms, put UCM on the bus, because it was over that quickly.
Yeah. Well, they started off, I'm sorry to steal your thunder there for a second, but they started off hitting 3 threes back to back to back. It wasn't even guys that you would expect. You would expect players like Trevor Hudgens, Ryan Hawkins, Ryan Welty, even Diego Bernard getting in there. But Luke Waters, he started off really strong. In the first 6 minutes, I think he had 9 points, and they took him out in midway through the first half. He had 11 points in 11 minutes, and he didn't touch the court until after halftime. So they didn't really need his spark in that offensive any set anymore, because the rest of the team was able to do it a lot more. Diego Bernard had a very impressive night. He almost was a little touch over about halfway to a triple-double, which isn't really something we get to talk about here a lot, other than when Trevor Hudgens did it just about a week ago now.
Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff here on X106, also streaming live on the KNWT Channel 8 Facebook page. Jacob Blair, Andrew Botwinick, Sam Steinmeier, Austin McNorton, Nolan Brooks not with us here today. I think he'll be back next week. It's Austin that'll be gone next week.
Correct.
You can't get rid of me.
No, we can't. I want to.
As much as you want to, you can't.
You can't, though.
You tried to get Matt on the show.
I tried.
But he said no.
See, Matt Trenton's been trying to get on, talk some Bearcat sports for a while, but every time we have an open seat, he declines. So,
does he really want to come on, or
see,
is he just?
No, he doesn't.
He's just a humble guy. He's just a humble guy. He doesn't want to come on to our show and upstage us in front of everybody.
But would he though?
I don't know.
Are we calling Matt out right
We'll
now?
see. No, no.
So signing day was Wednesday for the Northwest Missouri State football team. It's been a while since we've talked the football program, but 50 signees into the program, 4 of them transfers, one of them kind of a cool thing, a video creator, treating him like the football team. So he's on this list as well. Just some different numbers. 25 of the signees from Missouri, 9 from Iowa, 5 from Nebraska, 3 from Kansas, 2 from California, 2 from Illinois, 2 from Wisconsin, 1 from Arkansas, and 1 from Texas. And it's a class where with Division II, it's important to remember most of these, at least all of the freshmen, will probably redshirt. It's every once in a while you see one of them that does not. You go back and look at someone like LaTroy Harper. He played his first year. Parker Sampson, they pulled his red shirt as the kicker, and he started playing his freshman year. But for the most part, all of these players will redshirt, and it doesn't sound like there's anyone that stands out as someone that won't, and that always can come later that they need to do that. But I think one of the interesting things, too, is Coach Wright talked about how they're still going to look at the transfer portal, try to fill some positions as well. One of them, one of the key ones was tight end. 2 seniors graduating, Kyle Ronning, Marcus Andrews, both no longer with the Bearcat football team as they graduated. So looking for tight end. You have also got the running back position. You lose Justin Rankin and Isaiah Strayhorn. So you've got running backs on the roster, but looking for a couple as well. But getting 50 signees, it's when you bring in classes like that, and you know the good thing about redshirting players is you can develop them, sit them in the program for a year, and then when they're ready to play. And I think that's what these large classes is what helps Northwest with their continued success.
I like what you brought up about the transfer thing, about potentially looking for that more, because I feel like last year at this time when we were talking about it, felt like there were more transfers. We saw a lot of guys from the community.
Justin Rankin
level.
wasn't here yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you look at this list, you said, 4 in total as of right now?
As of right now.
I think we can certainly expect that list to grow. And I think a lot of that is because of the success of Justin Rankin, him coming from that Division I level and having the success that he did. I think Rich Wright knows that and says we can go like a tight end. We can go try and find someone from a Division I level tight end and say, come help us win a national championship here in Maryville.
Which is absolutely absurd. If you really just look at the numbers, 50 recruits, and Rich Wright still says, we're going to go get some more. To put that into comparison, I'm looking at the numbers right now. This is what I was looking up. The number 1 Division I class is Alabama, no surprise, 24. They're bringing in 24 people this year, and they're the number 1 recruiting class. Granted, it's broken up between 5-star, 4-star, and 3-stars, and there's a lot of different numbers that go into how the ranking work. But 50 recruits, and you're still saying I want more. I like that mentality. It moves a lot. But one thing I was interested to see is there wasn't anybody from Florida this year. Every couple years, I know I've talked to some of the offensive coordinators, some of the guys that work well with the team. They like to go to those Florida settings and meet with some of those recruits and steal some of them away from some of the areas that they're looking to go towards, because Florida, I mean, it's not very convincing to pull someone from Florida and say, come to play in the heart of America, come play in Missouri where you'll get to see snow for the first time and you'll see it for a couple of months. But
it
won't go away.
But it's interesting to see that no one yet has came from Florida, and that's when we'll see a lot of people come in, I think, pretty soon down the line.
And that's where I think, though, the number with California in 2 is interesting. Also because the new offensive coordinator, Todd Sturdy, small ties to the California area, so already kind of dipping into that pool, looking out there as well.
And Todd Sturdy's actually bringing a couple guys with him from Mid-American Nazarene, and Jamar Moya, and then his son, Keegan Sturdy, who I actually remember from high school. He played at one of my high school's conference opponents in DeSoto High School. So I actually think that him potentially being able to recruit some of those guys from like that level that he was at could help as well, and potentially more of the transfer portal.
I think another interesting point is you go through the list, and a lot of the Missouri and even some of the Kansas players are from the Kansas City area. They're from the Class 6, Class 5 level schools in Kansas City. So you've jumped into that market as well, where a lot of those players are getting, you're in the city. A lot of those players get, Power 5 looks, Division 1 looks, and now you're jumping in there and you're pulling a lot from that area as well. And I know it's a Missouri school, but to see so many Missouri kids signing this season is a little bit interesting.
Yeah, and it kind of gets those pipeline states, so to speak, where you get some from Kansas, you get some from California, which is now all of a sudden becoming a viable recruiting option. As I said earlier, we haven't seen many from Florida yet, but we'll get a couple. We'll get one or two because we usually do. You get a couple from outside other states as well. I think Wisconsin's starting to become more of a place where people will go out to for Northwest Missouri State. I know the recruiting is set up differently, and some of the coaches will go north and they'll cover 3 or 4 different states in the next couple months to try and recruit people. I know that's how it is, and they'll spread out, and I'm sure there will be at least 10 more people that will be signed in the next 2 or 3 months.
And, one thing, you mentioned getting people from Kansas City and, California. One pipeline that usually has a few that we don't see on the list, Maryville. Maryville High School usually feeds some players into the Northwest program, and now, whether it was just, a bad year for Spoofhound recruits, or maybe they didn't try to dip into that pipeline, is, there's none. And I know there's one Spoofhound that's getting looked at. Tate Oglesby hasn't decided yet, still wants to, he's playing basketball right now, so I guess he still doesn't know if he wants to play basketball or football yet, but, we could see that. We could see, them try to dip into the townies, which normally they get a few, but yeah, it's a great recruiting class for Northwest. And you mentioned Kansas City. They're also getting guys from Columbia, which usually haven't really seen that in Rockbridge and Battle High School.
So yeah, again, those Class 6 schools, and with the way Missouri high school works, is football is the only sport with 6 classes. And then, like, basketball has 5, but they made Class 6 for football, and that's where it's basically Columbia, St. Louis, Kansas City. There's a couple down south close to Springfield that feed into Class 6, but it's not all that many schools. So to jump into those schools, I think that's important as well. A lot of talent there, but then you're also getting a lot of the players from the small schools as well, out in the more rural areas. So a wide range of players in this year's signing class. Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff here on X106, also streaming live on the KNWT Channel 8 Facebook page. Jacob Blair, Andrew Botwinick, Sam Steinmeier, Austin McNorton. It is that time for Off My Rocker. Some crazy things, some crazy predictions. Still don't think anyone's gotten anything right yet this year. We've had some half rights, maybe some 3/4 rights, but some close ones. But no one has actually ever gotten anything right. Nolan, some of our craziest ones this year, is not here to give us that. Sam's here. Get 3 Sam Off My Rockers in a row, so that's good. But we'll start with Austin this week.
All right. Actually, this works because we were actually kind of just talking about it. I promise you, I had this before the show got started, and we actually were just kind of hinting at it. With what Memphis just built and the way that Portland has been playing, I think they both somehow get into the playoffs, and I think both of them get into the playoffs. Really, I really like, because I spent a lot of this show looking up what Memphis's new roster is, and I kind of like it. I like Jordan Bell coming off of the bench. Obviously, he was making an impact in Golden State. Dylan Brooks is really excited that Justice Winslow is now on his team. He thinks that Justice Winslow is a guy who will work hard and has kind of the same mindset as the rest of his team. I think it's incredible that, this has got to be one of the most impressive. You don't see this very often where teams are already building around a rookie before the season's even over. That's what Memphis is doing with John Morant. They're literally already building a team around this guy before the season is over. I like the Grizzlies to make the playoffs, and I like Portland as well. The question is, who falls out? To me, I'm sorry, Sam, it's either the Thunder or the Jazz. I think one of those teams will fall off. They'll figure out how to stop Chris Paul, which right now is a lot easier said than done with the way that he's playing. No one expected him to play this well. I didn't personally this season. He's playing out of his mind. And Utah, like Andrew was hinting at, people have already started to kind of figure them out. And the thing is that I believe Portland and Utah are in the same kind of division of the NBA, so they'll get a couple of matchups against them. So I think Portland and Memphis both make it as a 7 and 8 seed, and Utah and the Thunder, one of those teams will fall out.
I think that's safe. That's a pretty safe prediction, I would assume.
You think they both get in the playoffs?
I think they both get into the playoffs.
Yeah, see, that's where you lose me. That's
You
where
have
I
just
think.
one?
That's where I think you're off your rocker. I think that Portland or Memphis will get that 8 spot. One of those two. The top 7 teams are set. Those 7 are going to make the playoffs, in my opinion. Just whether they're going to be where they're at now is the question.
Initially, I had it was just Portland with what I saw Portland
And
do
I
to
wouldn't
my
say you were off
Lakers.
your rocker if you did that.
Right.
But since you said both get into the
Right.
playoffs, I don't see. I think Portland either overtakes Memphis or Memphis just keeps that 8 spot. I don't see both of them getting into the playoffs.
I think both put you off your rocker. I think Portland's too far behind.
Okay.
That the only way they get in is they jump Memphis.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're-
See, I just had that it was Portland, but with what Memphis did during the trade deadline, wow, I just combined. Wow, that wasn't a word. Trade deadline. Then I had both of them. That's what I changed up a little bit. So there you go.
Sam?
For me, I go to baseball because that's my sport. The Red Sox trading Mookie Betts turns the AL East into a 2-team race. Those 2 teams are the New York Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays. I don't think the Yankees do as well as everyone says they're going to do. They're still going to win 90-plus games. They're still going to make the playoffs. But I don't think they win over 100 games. The Rays win over 100 games, and they will win the AL East.
I'll say you're off your rocker unless what you said about them trying to get
Yasiel Puig.
Yasiel Puig comes true.
So if they get Yasiel Puig, I'm not.
Right. If they
Okay.
get Yasiel Puig, then you are correct. But if not, then the Yankees win that division.
Okay.
Because I think your pitchers are one of the best in the MLB. Now, not in that division just alone.
I have to make a rule. And like this I'm going to have to make this rule for Andrew and I. You guys were like, off our rocker has to stay away from our teams we cheer for.
Okay, I'm sorry. But, this is kind of a homer episode for me. I picked the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl. I picked Gonzaga to go to the Final Four. And I'm picking the Rays to win the AL East.
Yeah, and Austin picked Pittsburgh, so we got everybody.
Right,
Everybody's got their
exactly.
homer pick.
Yeah, I'm just a huge Steelers
And Memphis,
fan.
you got
Absolutely.
Memphis too, and
Memphis
Portland.
Steelers, those are my diehards.
Those are your guys.
Absolutely. Never a doubt. What's even the Steel Curtain, baby? Isn't that their thing? I don't even know.
I think so.
I think so.
Sam, I'll say you're off your rocker just because the Yankees' payroll is enough to get 100 wins.
Yeah, I mean, I think Garrett Cole is making more than every single Tampa Bay Ray on the roster.
Rays will
so.
be the better. The Rays will be the better team, but the Yankees will have the payroll to get them to win that division. The Rays probably go further in the postseason, though.
I think the Rays end up the wild card team. Just as
I
Andrew
see.
said,
I agree.
Too much.
I agree.
Too much money with the Yankees baseball. It's with still the salary cap not being a thing. You can just pay whoever you want, however much you can. It gives the Yankees too much. I think the Rays though make the wild card, and then once you make the playoffs, it's
Doesn't
it's
matter.
the playoffs. It doesn't matter once
It
you're
doesn't
in.
matter whether you have a payroll or not. You can't go out and get anybody in trades and stuff.
So, I think I'm not going to say you're completely off your rocker because
See me either.
Because
I have some contingencies in
there,
mind.
there's enough in there where it's like, oh, I think this could happen. I don't think that's going to happen. So you're not completely crazy, but not completely sane either. Andrew, do you want to go last, or do you want me to go?
I'll go last because I
Go last.
think I've been giving Nolan a run for his money
Okay.
recently.
So we normally stay away from we don't. I don't think any of us have ever really used Northwest athletics in our Off My Rockers.
You're not.
I'm gonna break that trend. Going Northwest. Now I know they play Lincoln on Saturday, but I'm gonna go one game ahead. We're gonna go to Missouri Southern. We don't get to talk about that on here until that Friday after it happens. There's a couple players that have scored 40 or more in their career a couple times. For Northwest, it's Ryan Hawkins. For Missouri Southern, it's Cam Martin. You'll see those two names a lot. Both players score 40 on Thursday. It's back and forth between those two.
I like it. I don't think you're crazy. I like it.
They both score 40.
You know, I love that. I don't think you're crazy. I really want it to happen now.
I really hope you're right because that would be
Because it
No,
can
you know what would
happen.
be great is if they waited a week later and did it here in Bearcat Arena.
right. Okay, I'm gonna say you're wrong, and it happens the following week on Thursday when Andrew and I are on the call. That's when it happens, not in Joplin.